Welcome to the Racer Insider Show, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Travis Turner. That man next to me is Lindy Suiter, the Racer Insider, now working on 60 plus years of being a fan of Racer basketball, and that makes him also our Racer historian. We look forward to the show we've got for you today as he is going to begin to reveal the Suiter 60. It'll be the all 60s team, and we will mention we got a couple of guys that kind of cross over into the 70s, and we'll probably touch back on those guys as they transition one decade to the next. We've also got a couple of our early 60s guys that Lindy knows about, but maybe it's not his clear recollection on those, but you'll know those names as well. And what we want to do with that section is we really want to highlight for you who these players were in terms of the great statistical resumes that they built. But I think the most important thing about the Suiter 60 is Lindy's memories of them. And I think for all of us as fans, that's where players come alive. You can look at numbers on a page, but those are just numbers on a page. It's about what you saw a guy do, the big games, the big moments. That's the really fun stuff. And so we'll look forward to covering that. We'll start, though, of course, by catching up with the still undefeated first place Racers leading the Missouri Valley since we've last been with you. A big win at home against Bradley, a hard-fought win on the road at Evansville, a reminder of how hard life on the road is in conference play. If you don't believe us, ask Illinois State about that, and we'll get into all of that in just a moment. But before we go any further, we do want to thank our sponsor, the Suiter Insurance Group, led by our man, Lindy Suiter. He's got a great team there. You can reach him via phone at 270-753-5842. And online at SuiterInsGroup.com. Again, that is SuiterInsGroup.com. Lindy, we've learned over the last few weeks, you guys have a lot to offer us. What would you like to highlight about your insurance agency today?
I think probably talk a little bit about your commercial insurance, the folks that have their business policies. That, there's a coverage that has really become really important in the last 5 to 10 years, but really more important today probably than ever. And that's the cyber liability endorsement onto your policy, a cybersecurity policy to protect your business against, all kinds of cyber attacks or whatever might happen. Because if anybody watches the news or gets online, you hear about it all the time. And I think that's a coverage that I would totally recommend most businesses have.
Smart stuff and real stuff. And Lindy, I'm a little bit scared about online. I may just cut this recording off here. There's terrible things on the internet, but also wonderful things. You talking about the Racers. But again, folks, we appreciate the support of the Suiter Insurance Group. Again, 270-753-5842, SuiterInsGroup.com online. Well, my friend, I know there's nothing you like better than championships. There's nothing more fun than pursuing one. The Racers are doing a real good job in the hunt for that regular season title, undefeated so far. Again, a blistering shooting performance in the first half against Bradley. 10 of 17 from deep, opened up a big lead. They would be able to manage that throughout the rest of the day in an 86-66 win. And then it was not easy and not always pretty in the win at Evansville. They did finally make the Purple Aces submit, won that one 79-69. But the important thing is it's another conference win. The conference slate remains unblemished. I mentioned earlier, Illinois State could not say the same after a trip to Valpo. And, of course, they had made life a little hard on the Racers back on December 21st. They come to the CFSB Center on Saturday. But, Lindy, I know you love seeing this club with that 0 over in the loss column so far in conference play.
Oh, I love it big time, Travis. I hadn't had to call you one time and cancel a podcast. That's so much fun to get on there and talk about, or get on the podcast and talk about a win. But it was a big week. And, you go back to that win, the wins that we had at Valpo and Illinois Chicago. I think I mentioned that there's going to be teams that are going to get beat at those two places. And you don't realize how big of wins those were. And they were huge wins. And of course, as you saw, Illinois Chicago beat SIU, which I still think SIU has a good, solid team. And then, of course, Illinois State going in there and getting beat. But Valpo's a dangerous team. The more I've watched them, I've watched them play against us. Watched a little bit of that game the other night, and they got a player, the Deese kid. He is just having an out. The 2 times I watched him, he looked like an all-conference player to me. And they got some size. And they got a little momentum going. So that game Saturday is not an automatic W.
Yeah,
But
Lindy, we'll come back to Owen Deese in just a minute, but I'll just make this point to endorse what Lindy tells you about Owen Deese. The game against the Racers back on the 21st of December, he had 25 and 27 minutes on 10 of 13 shooting from the field, 3 of 4 from three. Folks, when you're getting 25 on 13 shots, that's good stuff. And if you can believe it, he was even better in the win against Illinois State, showing off a full toolbox, full arsenal. In fact, he capped it with an and one dunk late as they put Illinois State away. Valpo only took 12 threes. You don't have to take very many when you make 9 of them the other night. They buried Illinois State in threes and frees. So we'll take a look ahead at that. But Lindy, speaking of our favorite number, the 3 in the free against Bradley, the 3 was flowing free again, 10 of 17 in the first half, part of 13 threes in the contest. 7 different racers made a triple. They threw in 13 out of 14 from the line to boot and won the 3 and free 52-34. And we know the shooting is not going to be there every single night. It wasn't against Evansville from deep. But my goodness, when this club, with all of the weapons they have, when they shoot it like they did against Bradley, it's hard to see anybody beating them.
I agree with that. I agree with you. Not just in the Missouri Valley Conference, a lot of conferences.
Yeah.
If they shoot and play like they did. And, I was that was one of the things that had me concerned going to Evansville, because I am one of those guys that believes in percentages.
Yeah.
You're a 37% shooting 3-point team, a 40% 3-point shooting team. That's what you are. So when you shoot 70% or 65% one game, are you going to come back and do that again? Because somewhere along the line, the percentages, and I've always followed that. How good did the team shoot from 3 the game before? Because maybe the opposite might happen the next night,
right? Just
because of percentages. And so I was really happy for more than one reason to see Valpo hit 9 out of 12 or whatever it was. But you're right. And what just continues to amaze me is this bench and the deep, we keep talking about it every week, how deep the team is. Well, every week you notice it more.
Right.
I mean, these guys are just getting better. You interchange them, it's and Roman is, he's actually, I think you would probably agree, he's taken another step in the last week or so. And
Lindy, what's interesting, and I think this is why you and I believe this is the championship team in the Missouri Valley. Obviously, the tournament's more random. It's it's a one and out potential deal there always. So any good club could get hot and win that event. I think the Racers will go in as the favorite because I think they're going to be the regular season champ. But let's dig a little deeper here and let's spotlight this idea of the depth and the point that you just made. And I think this is so true when you get into the heart of conference play. The reason the Racer bench is more noticeable and is such an advantage is because, and every coach will admit this to you, maybe under true serum, maybe under duress, they wouldn't want to say it otherwise. But let's say you're in the non-conference. In the non-conference, you will see a lot of coaching staffs who will freely use 8 and 9 players in the rotation. There will be 3 to 4 guys off the bench that might play anywhere from 8 to 14 minutes. In the non-conference, they're very comfortable with that. It gets to conference play, especially when the calendar peels into January and everything matters and everything gets tight and everybody gets exposed by scouting reports. And guess what most coaching staffs do? They take one guy from that rotation and they push him further away from the scorer's table. We don't want that guy to play anymore when it matters because he is going to get exposed. Maybe he doesn't have a 3-point shot. Maybe he can't put it on the deck. Maybe he's a defensive liability. And so you lose that trust and the bench minutes. The bench scoring goes down because the bench opportunity goes down. What Murray State has been able to do is just to push in and lean further in to the depth of talent. And speaking of Roman in particular, for whom else does this guy not start and play 32 minutes?
I agree.
Okay. I mean, this guy is a first-team All-Missouri Valley talent who's playing 32 minutes for anybody else in the league. Matisse Corbone, who had a breakout shooting performance against Bradley. This is a 28-minute-a-game starting guard for most teams in the Missouri Valley. On and on. I mean, this is the reality of this team. And I was just looking at my notes, Lindy, on individual performances. Against Bradley, Javon Jackson, 20 points in 24 minutes. Fred goes for 11 and 8. Corbone has the 16-point effort on 6 of 8 and 4 of 5 from 3, 7 rebounds in 20 minutes. JJ Traynor continues to be incredibly efficient, 10 points on 3 of 5 shooting, 2 of 3 from 3. Lane Taylor with 5 assists. Already told you 7 players made a 3-point shot in that game. Against Evansville, Javon Jackson, 22 points in 25 minutes. Roman with that 19-point, 11 rebound effort in 26 minutes. JJ with another 12 on 8 shots. Corbone with 10. Again and again and again. I didn't even mention Mason Miller's 3-point weaponry there. I mentioned that Lane had 5 assists. Of course, his assist-to-turnover ratio has been so good. We know he's going to make shots. The change of pace of KJ Turne, the toughness of Brock Weiss, the shooting potential of Braden Shorter. Okay?
I know. Right. Well, that was really good. I loved hearing all that. I feel really good today. Oh, man. How about JJ, by the way? You mentioned JJ. Last couple of games, man, I think he's really hit some big shots. I mean, he
made a huge 3 against Evansville the other night.
From the same spot over there in that corner. He's dangerous. That 3-point shot kind of reminds me of a player that we'll talk about that played in the 60s. But what a great thing it is to have Roman and JJ. I mean, my goodness, that's two.
Well, that kind of length and versatility, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the versatility of those guys, and Jackson just keeps on plugging along. He's just a tough dude. He's a tough dude. And we keep making, what do we keep making down the stretch, Travis?
Free throws.
Free throws. How many times do I remember tweeting in the past free throws?
Yeah, got to make them.
And, man, we make them. And we missed a few down the stretch, but you're going to miss one. But, we didn't miss 2 in a row. And, we get the right guys at the line, too. And that's a good thing.
Well, you got some of these guys that aren't going to miss. I mean, they just really aren't. And, of course, I think, a lot of times when you look at the free throw percentage nightly, a lot of that's going to rest on Fred. And we know that he has gotten better there. But that's going to come and go. And I think that's just part of it, obviously. And, Coach Miller down the stretch will always have a decision to make in terms of whether or not Fred's on the floor when you're trying to protect a lead. But, of course, defensive presence around the basket, he's going to do such a great job on the defensive backboard. I think when the margin is big enough, it's certainly worth sticking with him in those situations, especially when you do have guys who can make free throws. But that goes back not only to the depth of this team in terms of the number of quality players, Lindy, but the 3-level manner in which they can score the basketball. Obviously, the great weaponry from the 3-point line. They can really drive it and attack rim. They can throw it into post-up situations with Fred King and really have an advantage. And, of course, the foul line has been so good to them this year. And, again, if you're setting in the room and it's the scout for the other coaching staff, there's just a lot. I mean, most clubs, there's something that you would want to say, look, if we have to give them something, I think we can comfortably give this to them. With the Racers, I don't think opposing coaches are comfortable with anything. And I think that's why you're seeing sort of a flip from night to night. Okay, so Bradley, I think, said, we're not going to let Fred King beat us. We're going to try to keep them from beating us in the painted area. Going to try to keep them out of there. The Racers said, okay, we'll take what you're giving us and we'll make 10 first-half threes. How do you like that? Evansville, I thought it was clear, went back to the approach some have used where we're going to really crowd you. We're not going to let you have as many attempts, not let that be as easy. And then the Racers are able to get some things done on the interior, beat a path to the basket. And, you're just going to have to pick your poison. And this club puts a lot of poison at you. I mean, there's so many ways they can beat you. And isn't that the resume of everybody that wins at a high level? They can beat you in a lot of ways and on both ends of the floor. Keep in mind, I want to go back to the Bradley game for a minute, Lindy. 23 of 70, sub 33% shooting for a pretty good Bradley club there. And then Evansville got a lot done from 2 the other night. They were very efficient from 2, but the Aces just 1 of 12 from the 3-point line. So Murray State completely took that off the board and winning 3 and free, 39-17.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point because I've seen some discussion on the Racer Nation message board about our defense. And I really thought our defense has been pretty good. I think it's improving. I think it's noticeable. And, the stats that you just shot out kind of proved it. But, when you're trying to stop the 3-point line, and trying to prevent the 3-point shot from happening, and you're trying to protect the rim too, you're going to give up a lot of mid-range 2-point shots. They're just going to happen. It maybe looks like, how do they keep getting in the lane? How do they keep doing that? Well, that's because we're putting so much emphasis on shutting down that 3-point line. Do you agree with that?
Oh, I do. And we talked about it a little bit in our last show, Lindy. One of the things that's going to go in a scout is when you have dangerous 3-point shooters, it's going to be in the scout. The player's going to be told, you're going to go through it countless times in practice and game day walkthroughs. If I'll just use the number 15, just the generic player number 15, if 15 is in the corner and there is a drive attack and he gets into the gap and beats his man, whoever's guarding 15 is not helping.
Right.
You're staying home. And so the onus is on the man defending the player with the basketball, the potential driver. You've got to try to keep him out, but you just are going to help will come from somewhere else. It will not come from the shooter or shooters. The other thing about the way that Murray State is going to defend, generally speaking, if people put Fred in a ball screen, and they're going to, because they know what Murray State's going to do, they want to get that advantage. But if Fred is in the ball screen, if his man sets the screen, the Racers are almost always going to put him in drop coverage. The reason for that is if he blitz doubles or he hard hedges out, a smart guard gets into his body and falls down, Fred has another foul.
Right.
And so they're just going to drop him into the lane a little bit. And especially on middle ball screens, you get to attack really deep. You get yourself in a good position there where the ball can go left or right. And it's just good offensive basketball. The middle ball screen, by the way, amongst ball screen actions, is the best and most difficult to defend. You will find teams all over the country who are having a very unpleasant time dealing with middle ball screens, because if the ball screen action is left or right, you're simply going to ice it to either side of the floor. If it's on the left, you keep it left. Don't let them reverse it. If it's on the right, you keep it on the right. You don't let them reverse it. The center of the floor is where all good things happen, because you have the center of the floor. You have left, you have right. So one of the things that is it's important to realize when you're looking at defense, look at rates, look at just like we talk about in terms of points per possession. Look at those numbers. Don't get caught up sometimes. I know field goal percentage, especially if somebody shoots over 50%, but what are they getting per shot? And that's where we go back to the 3-point shooting. Remember, the 3 is 1.5 times more valuable than the 2. And if the Racers know they're going to make, the other night, look, we didn't shoot it real well against Evansville from 3. We were 7 of 25. They made 1.
Right.
Understand?
Right.
That if you're plus 6 on threes, that's 18 points. If you're plus 6 on 2, that's 12. So if Evansville is plus 6 on 2 and we're plus 6 on 3, they're losing.
Right.
It's math. That never changes. And so I promise you, these guys understand exactly what they're doing, how they're playing, what they intend to do. And yes, and this is the thing about coaches. This is also the thing about fans. How many points do you want them to give up? None is your number. That's what you want. You don't want them, fans, you don't want them to score. Guess what a capable Division I basketball team is going to do? They're going to score something.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to make some baskets. That's the way the game works. They can play a little bit too. And the important thing end of night is that you have more points than your opponent. And I'm not sure where we got off on this. When we get to the Suiter 60 here in just a minute, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the game was played back then.
Right.
And defense was not a part of anybody's practice equation. This is your man. You guard your man. If he beats you, he beat you. There's not going to be a lot of help rotation. We're not going to foul him because contact is not actually allowed in the game of basketball. We forgot that, but here we are. But defense can be something. It can be about point prevention. It can also be about pace creation. And everything is not always about a grind. And also remember this about the Racers and how they defend. Part of the reason they win 3 and free every night is because they don't foul very often. They don't foul shooters in particular. Guys got a deep catch on the box. Fred King, let him lay it in. Don't spend your foul. Don't get them into the bonus. Don't give them free opportunities to score with the clock stopped at the foul line. Let him have his 2, get it out, and go. So,
Yeah.
listen, that's a whole nother show. We can parse that in a lot of different ways. But the Racers they've won 10 in a row. They're 6-0 in the league. Are they playing well enough defensively? The answer to that would be yes.
Yes, they are. And I did in the coach's post-game show the other night against Evansville. I noticed that Ryan spent a little bit of time talking about free throws, making more free throws than the other team shoots. That's one of their main goals. And I think you talked about that several years ago.
Well, Lindy, that's actually a Bob Knight concept.
Bob Knight.
Where that comes from is Coach Knight, and the man who actually took it to an even higher level, had a bit of success in Durham, North Carolina. Former Bobby Knight point guard at West Point, Mike Krzyzewski, was a huge proponent of that concept.
Actually got to witness that Bobby Knight concept in person, believe it or not. The Racers played Indiana, and they made 32 free throws. I think. I don't know. You'd have to look it up. It was an unbelievable number. But it was actually when Coach Egger was here. I can't remember exactly what year it was, but it was pretty cool going up there and watching us play Indiana.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, the Assembly Hall in those days, Lindy, would have been as good a place to be as any.
Right. In fact, I'd say one of the highlights of being a Racer Insider, doing getting the media pass to NCAA tournaments and being able to sit in all the, the interviews, was sitting in on Bobby Knight's a couple of times. That was a really neat experience.
I hope your chair retained your ass and you didn't cause any trouble in there.
Any question? I stood back, sat in the back, kept quiet, but it was entertaining and fun.
Would have been interesting to have asked him a question and see what happened, right?
Yeah.
All right. One last thing before we start our Suiter 60 reveal, my friend. Valpo does come in, and again, last time out, 85-79, the Racers won it on the road. Roman had 20 in that one, Fred 19, Javon 18. The Racers shot it pretty well from 2, was only 6 of 18 from 3, but they did get to the foul line 28 times, made 23 in that one. And we mentioned Owen Deese playing so well right now, had 25 in that one. So Valpo, don't sleep on the game this weekend. That'll be big, and every one of them, as we talked about, in the road to the number 1 seed in the regular season title, they all matter. You can make birdies with a win on the road, my friend, but you got to make your par. Got to win them all at the house.
Right. You better not be making no bogeys or double bogeys. But, Valpo is a team, I think, by watching them play, they're a lot more talented than I thought going in. I don't think this is your normal Valpo team where you just think, oh, that's Valpo. They're at the bottom of the league. I think they're going to make a really push to finish somewhere in the mid-pack of the league. So it's a very dangerous game. They got momentum, too. They were really feeling good about themselves after that win the other night, too.
Boy, they really were, and they should have been.
A lot of confidence. It was a huge win for them. So they're rolling in here. I'm sure they're feeling the underdog role, but they're a talented team, and it's going to take a championship effort for the Racers to come out of there with a win.
Yeah, and that's why you got to defend home court, and you get as many on the road as you can. And anytime you do win on the road, as they did at Valparaiso, you have gotten a leg up on Illinois State, in this case, who could not leave with a victory. All right, my friend, I'm going to throw our Suiters All 60s logo up here. Look at that. That's good looking.
I like that.
Good looking stuff. Well, we're gonna reveal these guys, and what a great list it is. And obviously we're going to get to 60 racers all told as we go through this process. But we wanted to honor each era as it should be. And again, the game has changed so much. And Lindy's memories, I think, are the key here again, because his memories are his memories. But I'll tell you the thing about the record book. Once upon a time, of course, we didn't have the three-point shot, but once upon a time, we weren't consistently tracking things like even assists or blocks or steals. So the record book is limited in that way. And it's really only been in about the last 45 to 50 years or so that you had all of the numbers that we have now, probably in the last 45, to be frank. So his memories will be key. We've got some numbers and some statistics that we'll show to you. But the biggest thing for me is letting Lindy talk about his memories of these guys and who they were and what they did. So we're going to start with a couple of guys from early in the 1960s, Lindy, Jim Jennings and John Namsu. And Jim one of the great rebounders in Murray State history, and another member of this group, Dick Cunningham, who we'll get to in a bit. These two guys, both at 6'10", of the 6 highest single season rebound per game averages in Racer history. Those two guys, Jim and Dick Cunningham, they have all 6.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they are all-time rebounders, number 2 and 3, while only playing 3 varsity seasons in their career. That's what's going to be the same about all of these guys. No more than 3 seasons, sophomore, junior, and senior eligibility. And so Jim, just a great, great player, one of the OVC's finest in his era. And then in the backcourt, John Namsu, who one of the things that stood out to me, Lindy, about him, also a 1,000-point scorer in his career, but was also a tremendous rebounder from the guard spot. Just 6'2" out of Canton, Ohio, I think, but he averaged nearly 8 rebounds to go with 20 points his senior year. So these two guys early in the 60s, 2 great Racer players.
That's the first guy I remember, John Namsu. Going back through my memory. Of course, I was going to the games, but we got to go on this old memory right now.
Right.
You go back to John Namsu in that year, so you're looking at me being 6 or 7 years old, okay? This is 6 and 7-year-old Lindy sitting down there in the north end with the old yellow railing around the arena. They used to have a little, railing around the arena where you couldn't get on the floor. And I just remember this John Namsu. And, of course, my dad's taking the game, but he's spending most of the time yelling at the referees. I do remember that. I guess that's where I got it from. I don't know. But, boy, he was on them. And the funny thing was, they was at Suiter Shell 3 hours earlier getting their cars gassed up for their trips home, talking about, being buddies with us. And then the next thing you know, my dad's on them. But I remember John Namsu. And the only thing I really, of course, that year is, they went to the NCAA. Played Loyola, who had won the national championship the year before. And the real thing that comes to my mind with that year is actually sitting in my grandparents' den, listening to the radio, listening to the game with my granddad, while my dad and his buddies are actually made about a 10 or 11 hour trip in the snow, I think, to get there to watch it. But I remember, the thing I remember about that year is that, and John Namsu just being one tough dude, man. I mean, he was the original tough guy that I remember. And he could run into that railing and it wouldn't even hurt him. But that railing always stood out to me because I kept thinking somebody's going to bust their head on that railing around the court. But yeah, Namsu was tough. But, Jennings, I just don't really have a clear memory of watching him play. I did get fortunate enough that Benny Goheen brought me a treasure. He brought me like 8 reels of 63, 64 games. So cool. you don't have any volume, and it's black and white, but it's been all put on DVD. So I have got to watch them play. And boy, they got up and down the floor. Let me tell you, they got up and down the floor. And I do remember, Jennings being a really good rebounder in the games that I watched, the highlights that I watched. And of course, Namsu, that was the first starting lineup that I knew.
Right.
Scott Slosser, John Namsu, Stu Johnson, Jim Jennings, and maybe Al Varnes. Because my dad got it in me. That's the starting lineup. But that's what I remember about those two guys.
Yeah, just special memories and special careers. Again, on Jim Jennings, 61 through 64, 3 times he was an all-OVC player. He was the OVC Player of the Year. Again, huge parts of that NCAA club. Jennings in his career, 1,370 points for 19.3 points a game, 1,147 rebounds for 16.2 rebounds a game. How about 19.3 and 16.2 per game as a double-double? He averaged a double-double in each of his 3 seasons. His best statistical season was 61 and 62, 20.5 points, 17.2 rebounds a game. And for John Namsu, from 62 to 65, a Racer, 15.2 points a game for his 1,003 points. Also 350 rebounds, 7.3 a game. And that senior year, 20 points and 7.9 rebounds per game. Really, really impressive stuff.
Heck of a team.
Yeah.
In fact, we're the one that started the little banner run of OVC and the NCAA appearances. It started with that team. Benny and them won, but it wasn't the OVC back in the day when they were playing. And, I'm not leaving Benny and those guys out. We're only talking about guys that I was alive. So I don't want anybody to think, no, Benny Purcell was a great player. I would put him up there at the top of the list because he was one of my favorite people. And it's too bad we don't have him in here right now on the screen letting us go over these guys. And,
my goodness.
I remember the recruiting stories on these guys that he's told me on the trips we made together. And, man, they're just I've got to get it down on paper, I guess.
Well, Lindy, you and I had the treat of having Benny in our old radio show days. He was with us, and man, the stories that he told, and just to hear him talk about all the players, and again, those recruiting stories, some that can be told, some that couldn't, but all of them classic, and just a lot of fun. And he was a part of all of this. Stuart Johnson is the next guy on our list. Lindy, from 63 to 66, twice all OVC, part of that great NCAA tournament team. Got an All-American selection in 1966, by the way. 1,275 points in his career, 16.8 a game, 981 rebounds, 12.9 per game. And he also averaged a double-double in each of his 3 seasons as a racer. His best statistical season was 64-65 when he averaged 20 points and grabbed 14.1 rebounds a night.
Oh, yeah, he was a heck of a player. I mean, he was what I would consider probably, I know Jennings had the great career, but Stu Johnson and, not just the 60s. He was the first really great player we had. I mean, he really, if you look at the stats, look what he did after he left Murray State.
Right.
Sure that you've got a little bit on that too. He had a heck of a career. So yeah, he was probably, I think, he was the first great player that I really can remember watching play. He had a really nice shot. He had a very versatile game, Travis. He could shoot the ball.
Lindy, when you look back, we've had a lot of racers that were drafted, especially when there were different pro leagues and the draft, there were many more rounds in the NBA, but I believe Stu was a 3rd round pick.
Yes, he was. And he went on, I think he played in the ABA, and he had a heck of a career. Had some real scoring, had some years where he scored a lot of points.
Yeah, it's
really career.
It's pretty neat. And I've loved to hear your memories of the great battles, especially between the racers and Western back in these days. And we'll get to your guy, Les Taylor, when we get to the 70s. But I mean, just to hear you talk about not just the electricity in the building, but the rankings and the national reputation that the program and the league had at the time. I mean, it's really amazing stuff. And for people that are many, many years removed now in the present from that, I think people sometimes, if you told them that Western and Murray met with both ranked in the top 20, it's hard for people to wrap their mind around that. But that's the level of play that was happening at the time.
Yeah, and no telling, we might have went to the NCAA every year back then if we'd had 64 teams in it.
Right.
And, there was only one team going back then, even from the SEC, I think. It was just
that's
one
right.
team going.
Yes, that was typically the case.
Field cut down, and, you didn't have all the avenues to publicize the players, but, what a special time to actually, if you grew up in Murray and you were my age and you liked basketball and you liked sports, I don't know if there's any place anywhere in America that would have been better.
Right.
Going as a kid and running down, I guess it's 14th Street, running down with my buddy Brad Barnett, who lived 2 blocks, and running down that street with our little signs going to Racer Arena for a big game against Moorhead or a big game against Western or a big game against Austin Peay. How can anybody ever take that for granted? So fortunate. Now, here we are decade after decade after decade throughout my life. I've been able to enjoy this out here. And don't ever take it for granted, folks. It has been one special ride. And those 60s sure was a good time to start it, because that's when, like I said, we really had some success. The Murray-Western rivalry was at a peak. When Clem Haskins was playing for Western and they rode in here and he was playing, and Gene Pendleton, who was a good friend of my dad, because you got to remember, my dad was about the same age as these players.
Right.
When I'm, that age. He's just a few years older than them. But anyway, him locking down Clem Haskins in a big game. And it's just, wow. That's all I can say. Wow.
Well, and Lindy, because we were here in Murray, Kentucky, the level of access and how close you could be.
Yes.
Obviously your dad had a personal relationship, but just as a fan, given the intimate setting that Racer Arena was, I mean, it's reach out and touch them level stuff.
Oh yeah, it was so great, and it was so unique. And of course, me being fortunate enough to grow up on that corner there of, at Chestnut and 12th Street, at little Suiter Shell was sitting on that corner, and Ellis Popcorn on the other corner, and the dump where the Sturt Stadium's at. And I hate to say that's why I don't drink the water, but anyway, don't drink the water. I think about it every time somebody goes to the water fountain. No, I'm only kidding. But yeah, it was really neat, because I can remember where I'm sitting on the little ledge. I can remember the referees. Spouty was one of them's name. McPherson was another name, which we'll talk about a player named that. And them coming in, and Cal Luther being there, and Benny Purcell being there, and and all those guys that played in the 70s, Don Funneman and Tom Moran and Bill Mancini, and all these guys working there. They were working there. I mean, they were actually working at Suiter Shell pumping gas, probably getting paid 4 times the minimum wage. I don't know. All I know is when I went to work, I was instructed not to charge any of them for their gas. Okay. That's all I knew. So I didn't. But yeah, okay, let's go on, because I can get carried away here.
Well, hey, carried away is what we're here for. By the way,
it's a special memory. I wish everybody could have experienced
it. People think revenue sharing is new, Lindy. It's not.
We're really way past the statute of limitations on that. Nowadays it doesn't matter. So,
all right, the next man on our list is Herb McPherson.
Yes,
64 to 67, twice all OVC, and the leading scorer for the Racers in the decade. And Herb's career, man, there's some cool stuff here, Lindy. 1,513 points, 20.4 points a game. And by the way, that includes the highest single game point total still versus a Division I opponent in Racer men's history. 44 dropped on the Blue Raiders of Middle Tennessee back on February 9, 1966. Herb also got 8 rebounds a night during his career. He had a double-double in 64-65, nearly 19 points, over 10 rebounds, and he averaged over 21 points per game in each of his final 2 seasons as a racer, again, on the way to being the highest scoring racer of the 1960s. And, of course, he was getting them all 1 and 2 at a time. No three-point shot back then. This man could score the ball.
He was deadly. He was deadly from that corner. If there's anything I can remember about Herb McPherson was that he could shoot. He was the first shooter. I don't know what his shooting percentage was, but if he'd have been shooting from 3, it would have been really good. And he was the first real shooter that I really noticed, man, he can really shoot it. And I always thought his go-to shot was that the shot from the corner, which when I look back and I think about how many times I've seen him make that shot, I start adding to that point total.
Right.
Because every one of them were 3-point shots. But yeah, he was a star. He's all OVC player, I'm sure, right? Yeah.
Oh, yes, twice, yes.
Twice. Anytime you're a 2-time all-conference. And back then, folks, they didn't put 20 on the first team. Okay?
It was 5 guys.
It was 5. They play 5 at a time. They don't play 10 OVC. But anyway, couldn't help it, Travis.
Hey, but, it's just true.
It's true. It's true. I mean, you were one of the top 5 players in the OVC in the 60s. You one heck of a player.
Yeah.
And he was one heck of a player. He still follows us. He lives up in Ohio. He's on Twitter. You can look him up. And he's still a racer fan. I hadn't seen him lately. I might ought to check into him, but I want to make sure that he knows that he's getting his proper recognition today, because he sure did deserve it. He was what I would say a shoemate, Chris Shoemate.
Yep.
But better.
Yeah, because Herb was about 6'6", I think.
It's Chris, but a better Chris Shoemate is what I would compare him to. Same kind of game. Had leaping ability and could shoot the ball.
Well, and this is a man, Lindy, again, the leading scorer of the decade, and he reached 1,000 points, again, without the aid of the three-point shot, clearly. He reached 1,000 points in 49 games.
Unbelievable.
So you're talking about one of the most special scoring talents that ever put the racer uniform on. The next guy on our list, is one of the great rebounders, period, in college basketball history. 6'10" Dick Cunningham from 65 to 68, twice an All-OVC selection, an All-American selection in 1968. Didn't quite get to 1,000 points, had 981, averaging nearly 14 a contest, but nearly 1,300 rebounds, 1,292 total, 18.2 rebounds a game. Number one all time, of course. In 66, 67, he led the nation in rebounding with 21.8 rebounds per game. Wow.
Massive dude. Massive. I know he was 6'10", and he had to have, he was just a big, stout guy, and he could dominate underneath the basket. Yeah, I do remember him playing several games. One that stands out happens to be over at Austin P, and that was in the little gym that before they had moved into the Dunn Center or whatever. It's a little gym over there. And I can remember sitting in there and him just dominating the game inside. And then I can also remember he was just a brute. I mean, I don't know how to. Didn't he play 10 years in the NBA back in the Blue Outlander or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? So, I mean, if you've done that, my goodness, you led the nation in rebounding. You played 10 years in the NBA. You backed up Lou Alcindor. Wow. I mean, that's another guy that's really a great. He's a racer great. It just was in the 60s, and a lot of people don't even know who he is probably that are racer fans now, but he was an actual racer great. My best story on Dick Cunningham is, though, after the year was over, the guys had an AAU team. It was mostly Murray State players. Dick Cunningham was playing on the team. They had an AAU tournament in Owensboro. Okay, we had to get Dick Cunningham to that game. My granddad was sponsoring the team because we used to have the big trophy because we won it. Because the finals came down, we were playing Western guys. So it was a Murray Western AAU battle, basically. And we had to get Dick Cunningham to the game. My dad had a 67 Cougar, okay? 67 Cougar. I got pictures of it. And we got to get Dick Cunningham in the game. So I get in the car, and Dick Cunningham gets in the car. And I'm sitting in the back seat, and I'm just thinking, oh, my goodness, I have never seen anybody that big. You know, you can imagine a Cougar sitting up front, this 6'10", massive guy. We won, we celebrated, and we stopped at a smorgasbord somewhere on the way back. Might have been in Catawba somewhere, I don't know. But anyway, we stopped at that smorgasbord, Travis, and to this day, I have never seen a man eat as much food as Dick Cunningham did. It was massive. Plate after plate after plate. I'm sure the owner of the restaurant was thinking, oh, my God. This is going to be a bad night.
He didn't make any money that week, did he?
No, he didn't make any money thanks to Dick Cunningham, but just another great experience that I had as a kid, because I'm guessing I'm probably, how old am I now? I'm 10. Am I got to 10 yet? 8 or 9? Maybe 9? 9 years old now, I think.
Yeah, sure.
So that's where we're at. That's where I'm at that time.
Well, that's a pretty great memory. And by the way, the single game, rebound holder as well. 36, Lindy.
Yeah.
36 in one game for Dick Cunningham. By the way, the game was played with pace back then. They took a lot of shots. They missed some of them. That's where all the rebounds came from, but nobody did it better than Dick Cunningham. Next on our list, a 2-year player, Lindy, and someone who will be very familiar with folks that are fans of high school basketball in this area, Billy Chumbler, who had a great coaching career at Cairo and at Paducah Tillman. But from 66 through 68, he was a racer, scored 744 points. It's one of the highest 2-year totals in program history, 15.8 points a game for his career, and had one of the most remarkable shooting performances, Lindy, of all time. When you go through the single season field goal percentage leaders, and there are some guys that have some high numbers, well up in the 60s, but they're all big guys. They're all front court players that would have got their work done around the basket. Chumbler made nearly 59% of his shots in the 66-67 campaign, which tells me, Billy, you should have just shot more.
Yeah, and
he was making them all.
I think he had a heck of a high school career around here, wasn't he, from Lowe's? I think I remember him being from Lowe's, and didn't he sign with Ole Miss out of high school, went to Mississippi, and then transferred into Murray State. And I think him and Dick Cunningham were big buddies, because even then, Billy Chumbler was fishing, okay? He was fishing then, because the one thing I remember about Billy Chumbler and Dick Cunningham is they like to go fishing. But anyway, Chumbler was a great shooter, too. He's another one that would have really benefited from the three-point shot. Yeah, he is another, like we say, another racer great. And he then went on and, like you said, had a heck of a coaching career in the high school in the first region. Is still really highly respected. I follow him, on friends with him on Facebook, and he's still involved, and he still cheers on the racers too. But yeah, he was a heck of a player. He was a tough dude too.
Yeah, I would imagine you can average or you can add 3 to 5 points per game on Billy's total with the 3-point line in play.
No doubt. And like I said, such a great guy. But he's probably the first, I'd say, guard that I really thought was just really, 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 really good was probably Billy Chumler. Because McPherson was more of a three. Herb played the three position, and Billy was more of the two. He played a two guard on that team. Yeah, they had a little guard that played during that time with him named Don Duncan that I didn't put on the list, but he would have been really close to making the list.
Yeah, you like Duncan as a player, and Duncan's another one of those guys back in the expanded draft days who was selected as well, and it tells you how much talent came through Murray State in this decade. And that includes the next man on our list, Claude Verdon, 67 to 70, two-time All-OVC. I suspect the only reason Claude wasn't 3 times because he only played 17 games in his sophomore season, but he was the OVC Player of the Year, made an NCAA tournament appearance with the 69 club, 1,490 points at 21 points a game, 778 rebounds, 11 rebounds a game at 6'6". In 68-69, Lindy, he averaged 23.5 points and 11.4 rebounds a game. Think about that for just a second. He went 20 and 10 again the next year as a senior, 20.4 and 11.5, and he reached the 1,000-point plateau in 1 game fewer than Herb McPherson. And he shares that mark as the fastest racer to 1,000 with Mike Coleman, D.T. Mays, and Jonathan Stark, all doing it in 48 games. And, of course, as we'll note one more time, Claude, of course, did it without the three-point shot. But you might say in the decade, this man was not just a star, but perhaps a superstar.
He was number one. He's my GOAT for the 60s, Claude Verdon. He is every bit as good as Jeff Martin. Every bit as good as Jeff Martin.
There you go.
Comparing to Jeff Martin. About the same size, had the kind of similar type games. I wouldn't rank one of them over the other one, but he's right there with him. And boy, when we're talking about these 60s, isn't it a shame that whoever was in charge, and I think I know, in the 70s didn't reward these guys in the 60s properly because names are not in the rafters. Yeah. Nobody remembers Herb McPherson. Nobody remembers these guys. But when you look at what they've done everything those guys did. We talked about, Verdon, NCAA tournament, right?
Yeah.
Played Marquette, Al McGuire, my first NCAA tournament game I attended. I remember it well. My dad made me dress with a little tie, had a little tie on because back then you wore ties to ball games. We were going to the NCAA tournament. This was a big deal. The first round was held in Carbondale. Al McGuire was coaching. We lost a key player before that game. Don Funneman, who was one of my dad's friends, was the best defensive player in the OVC. If you told me to put my all defensive team together in the 60s, Don Funneman would have been on it. He was an Army guy. He was an older guy. He was about the same age as my dad. We were really close. We'd go over there after games. But he did not get to play in that game. And that really hurt us. And that score was kind of misleading there. But we really had a heck of a team that year. But there's where Claude Verdon. He was, my opinion, the best player that I watched play in the 60s and is one of the top 10 that I've ever seen play.
Yeah, Lindy, 21 and 11.
He would have had a heck of a pro career, too, if he hadn't hurt his knee.
Yeah.
And as we all know, when you hurt your knees in the 70s or the 60s or 70s, it wasn't like hurting it this day and time. It could be
a lot of times
it was career ending for me, and it was career ending for him pretty much because he never was able. But he played for the Colonels, didn't he?
That's one thing about this, Lindy, that I hope doing this will, for folks that watch us, will have a great appreciation for just how special some of these guys were.
Yeah, I mean, he's great. And, if Lindy had his numbers hanging around his office right now and who he would retire, he'd definitely be up there.
Yeah.
No question. Well, anytime, I think, personally, if you're an OVC Player of the Year, you were pretty doggone good, no matter what year it was. If you were the best player in that league, you were really good, and he definitely was. He definitely was first superstar I think I've seen. The first racer, great, but I would say that I
Well,
really
and
it was good.
I'll just put it this way. How much would we lose our minds over a player today if they averaged 23.5 points and 11.4 rebounds a game at 6'6"?
Yeah, 6'6", well put together too. I mean, just a really good player. Smooth, like I said. Jeff Martin. When you think of Jeff Martin, think of Claude Burton.
Special. All right, partner, I got a couple left for you here on your list, and these are our crossover guys. Their career started in the 60s, finished in the 70s. But we've got a couple of guys that played together here. We've got Hector Blondette from 68 to 71, 1,030 points, 14.9 points a game. He also grabbed nearly 500 rebounds at 7.1 a game. He's another all OVC guy, another guy who got to play in the NCAA tournament. He averaged at least 14.5 points and at least 6.7 rebounds each season of his career. His best single season was 69-70. He averaged 16 points per game and claimed nearly 8 rebounds a game. And Lindy, the thing I remember before, and I'm going to let you speak to it, but hearing from you and Benny about Hector was his style of play. He was a guy, if people saw him, they weren't going to forget him.
He was ahead of his time. He was ahead of his time. He was your first showman. I mean, he made plays that you say, wow, how did Hector make that play? Hector Blondette was the first one that he you know, you had, in a way, Pete Maravich was ahead of his time too, if you remember, you know, with all the Duff stuff that he did and how he could do Magic Johnson stuff. Hector Blondette could do Magic Johnson stuff. I don't guess they kept up with assists then.
No, they didn't.
And he had a ton of assists. The thing with Hector is he was a character. Okay, he was a character. He came out of New York City. Great recruiting story. Couldn't get him Sewell, so we had to get him in PCC. He went to PCC, and I think somehow or another, Benny went up there and bought him a ticket, and he took a train, I think, or no, a bus to the Paducah bus station, and got off that bus, and he was just there. Some guy asked him where he was headed, and he says, well, I'm registered to go here to this junior college to play basketball, and that guy gave him a ride. And then, you know, the rest is history. But Hector was he was kind of a disciplined guy. You had to kind of keep an eye on Hector. He was a squirrel, as they would say. You never really knew where that squirrel was. But I can remember one highlight, and a heck of a player, and don't want to take it away from him. And I think we've got it in the banner years, the story on his career. But my story back to remembering him as we were playing East Tennessee in Johnson City. And my dad took me with him. We went down there. I had one of those little games that had the ping pong ball, and you would flip the ball, and you had the little goals on each side.
I had one too.
My game, I played it over and over and over and over, and kept buying new ones as the new ones would come out. Probably played it until I was 15 or 16 years old, to be honest with you, because I just loved playing that. And but anyway, was my greatest memory about Hector was the players came over to the room after the game. I won't say what some of them were partaking in with my dad, but anyway, Hector was down on the floor with little Lindy Suiter, 10 years old, whatever, and we were battling on that little game, that ping pong ball. And Hector sat there with me probably for about an hour and played that game. And then all of a sudden, Hector disappeared, and the bus left the next morning without Hector. We don't know where he went. But we had to get him back. But anyway, that's my really good story about Hector Blondette. He went on and back to Puerto Rico, had a heck of a career there. I mean, he's a legend in Puerto Rico. Hector Blondette is a legend in Puerto Rico.
Awesome stuff. And again,
that's Puerto Rico. You're coming back, and people's going to say Hector Blondette.
Well, and that's why, Lindy, we need the racer historian, because that's not in the record book. That's not on paper. That's where the good stuff is. Last guy on our list for the All-60s team, also stretching in to the 70s, from Cunningham, Tennessee, 6-foot Jimmy Young, 1,128 points for him, 14.4 points a game, twice an All-OVC selection, again, the NCAA appearance. And he was a guy known for his ability to shoot it. He averaged better than 16 points per game in each of his final 2 seasons. He shot over 51% from the field as a senior, another guy who would have benefited from that three-point line, and a great, great free throw shooter. He shot 85% for his career from the line including 89.6% in the 69-70 season.
One of our all-time great shooters, Travis. He's the original blonde bomber, or whatever they called that guy that played for Kentucky that had blonde hair. I don't know.
Yeah, Jay Shidler.
Yeah, that's his name. I'm sorry. I'm not up on my Kentucky stuff. But anyway, he was the original blonde bomber. He had the long blonde hair, and he would come down. And you mentioned he shot 51% from two. I'll bet if you went back and tracked his shots, if you could, I would say at least 75% of them or 80% of them were from the 3-point line or from the free throw line he was scoring. And I think he may be really, if I think back on it, I think he is the Racers' all-time best shooter.
Purest
guy, no doubt about it. And they were 3-point shots too. And the stats don't lie. I mean, you take a guard that is shooting jump shots from the outside, and he gets 51% from the field. That's not like the 6'10" guy underneath the basket. No. This is a guy that's making shots. He made big shots too. I recall a big shot he made against Oral Roberts, and Oral Roberts was really good at this time. They had Richard Fuqua was the kid's name. He played for Oral Roberts. He led the nation in scoring, I think. And they rolled in, and did so. But anyway, he was a tremendous player. Another one that I would consider a Racer great personally, and I had him on the 70s, but I thought, man, you can't leave him off of, either one really.
Right.
You almost got to put him on both. But yes, he's a solid player. I got pictures of me and him together. We used to hook up, me, him, and Benny, and Terry Darnell, and my buddy Roger, who I really miss dearly. We would always get together at the MVC tournament. And Jimmy was always there. I'd always get with him when I go to Clarksville to the ball games. Now that Austin Peay's out of the league, kind of lost touch with Jimmy a little bit. And Benny's not here, so I hope he's doing well. But yeah, he was I think probably one of I would have to say our all-time best shooter.
Well, and Lindy, I tell you what's great about all these memories and all these guys that wore the Racer uniform at that time is if people ever see you and what you've done with the Racer Insider, your level of passion for this program, these guys gave birth to that. They created that, and I know it all started with your dad. I know Gerald passed that love on to you, but
actually, my granddad started with my granddad to my dad to me, and yeah.
And these guys, and again, what Coach Luther and Benny and those guys were doing in that decade, it was where, as you mentioned, the banner years started to bubble. It started to go and grow, and it has sustained in you all these years later. So we're really excited to be able to shine a light on these greats from the 1960s. When we have a chance to reveal again, we'll have our guys from the 70s. So we do. And those of you that if you watch it and you have any connection to some of these men from that era, help us pass that along, because we'd love for them to know that they are well remembered and thought of, and that they're being recognized here.
Yeah, I'm going to try to obviously tag Billy Chumler when we put the show up on Facebook, and let him know about that we're talking about the 60s. And then I'll let Herb McPherson know on Twitter also. I'll let him know, and maybe they can kind of spread the word. I don't think Hector is no longer with us. I think he's passed away. Jim Jennings has also passed away. It was great that we did during the Hoopalooza and Coach Prohm. I remember going to Coach Prohm, and I said, man, we got to honor these guys in the 60s. They were the first ones to get us the NCAA tournament. Cal Luther was a great coach. I know all this stuff we're doing. We're honoring all the new stuff that's happened, but we got to get these guys in here. I mean, give them their proper recognition. And I was so happy. It was a night. Of course, they never liked us. It might have went to midnight because they like to talk when they got up there behind that microphone. But I know how that is. The older you get, the more you talk.
Well, you got more stories to tell, my friend.
Got more stories, but.
All right. Well done on the 1960s. One other thing we want to keep you guys posted on is our planned conversation with Coach Mark Godfrey. That is still in the works. I think Coach's schedule will be a little busy next week, so we're kind of looking forward to the week after, but we'll be communicating with him, trying to make sure that happens. And he's been very gracious and excited to join us. And knows what we're doing here. So we'll be looking forward to having him in. And obviously next week we'll try to stop in with an episode because we continue to chronicle this edition of the Racers and their race towards history, trying to win the men's program's first Missouri Valley title and add another banner year to Lindy's collection in his now over 60 years as a Racer fan. As we reach the 1 hour mark, my friend, we'll check out here with a job well done. We appreciate being to go into all of your memories. It's a real treasure trove to be able to hear you talk about these guys. And so with that, we'll put a bow on it. We'll wrap it up and we'll see everybody next time. But as always, Lindy Suiter has our signature sign off.
Go Racers.